welcome to the fourth already lecture evening in this series. And for tonight we are very happy to welcome Timmermans and Liesbeth van der Pol as the duo, the duo presentation. The concept of this lecture series is to have always two different architects from two different offices explaining their work, and we asked them explicitly to talk about just 2 or 3 projects in order to have the full information about the relation between the design and between the making of the actual design, how you translate the concept into actually really made building. This is the whole series. Tonight, Harm Timmermans and Liesbeth van der Pol, and I will, if this thing works, it does not. No batteries, I guess, or it's. Well, I'll just go on without pictures. That's fully okay. We'll start the evening with Harm Timmermans from Shift Architecture. And well, it's very nice to know that he studied in Eindhoven. Also his partners studied, so it's a fully Eindhoven background office, young office. Started with winning the RGP and winning RGP International, and starting off with an office. So, well, that's of course very nice to have also this interaction with people who studied here. And actually I was thinking that now every evening we had somebody from Eindhoven and somebody from somewhere else. So also tonight. Well, as I already told, you are working with 2 partners, Thijs from Bijsterveld and Oana Rades, and actually they are all a bit from a different generation. So they didn't study together, but with 2 and 4 years difference. And well, this is the project he will explain. I already understood more about, which has just been finished. The beautiful project for Museumplein Limburg that has just been finished. And well, a project that you realized a few years ago, which was like the first bigger project that you realized that already in that time I saw it in the reviews and I thought, wow, this is really great. The faculty club in Tilburg. After that, Liesbeth van der Pol will have a lecture, and well, dock architects. The interesting thing unknown from a lot of projects, so this was, just missed it. To see the other partners, I don't know if you have a picture like this in your lecture. And well, known of different, very appealing projects like the how do you translate the rode donders, the red thunders? Well, the work of the office characterized by very expressive and sculptural buildings, where also a lot of attention. I can remember also Liesbeth van der Pol always having her sketching book and making the most beautiful aquarelle drawings, making notes of everything that she saw around. And that's also characteristic of the work, where all you can really feel that all the knowledge of other typologies are being explored into becoming a new architecture and a new form. Shortly about, yeah, well, that's, well, you had longer hair here, yeah, of course. And, I thought that here would be a picture of the timetable of the evening, so we'll have a 3/4 of an hour. Harm will kick off this evening, and then we'll have a short break, and then Liesbeth from Paul is having her lecture, and afterwards there is the possibility for a discussion. So, stage is yours.
Okay, thank you, Liesbeth. Thank you, Anarchy, for the invitation. I'm very excited to be here because I studied here for about 8 years, and I haven't been here for 15 years, I think. And still, I look back with a very warm feelings to this place, but somehow I haven't been here in a very, very long time. Before I was sitting there, now I'm standing here, and I remember this place as a place where I followed actually the boring lectures. I don't know how it's nowadays, but I was doing the mathematics and building physics and all these things that I thought are so remotely connected to architecture. But today I'm actually partly talking about these disciplines as well, because they are part of our profession, and somehow I hope I'm not boring. Making architecture, I was actually very happy with the theme. There was also a reason to accept this lecture. It's something that's very dear to us, the actual making of architecture, to build architecture, and to realize actually that building elements, details, materials actually make or break architecture. It's a realization that I didn't have actually when I was your age and I was studying, and it came actually in the course of time. This is our team. Actually, it was our team a year ago when we did the museum. Our office provides between 6 and 8 people. This is where we work from. We are based in Rotterdam Center in an old building of the Freemasons. After my studies, I actually headed immediately for Rotterdam because I was very much pulled by that city. I did a traineeship at Atelier van Lieshout. Maybe you guys know this artist. And from that moment onwards, I was completely fascinated by Rotterdam. But today I'm not going to talk about this fascination nor about my final project, which I also did there. These are somehow a graphic representation of the 3 partners. I'm one of the 3 partners. Juliette already told you that one Rades and Tijd van Bijsterveld are the other ones. As you can see, we are all TU Eindhoven, and we worked for a couple of years for external offices such as NVRDB and NL Architects. Me myself, I worked for a Swiss office. And when I started the office in 2005, then when I got really a bit sick of having an office so fast after studying, she decided to work for NVRDV. I continued the office, and in, I think, 2010, we joined forces again together with Thijs, who then had a long period at NL. He was project architect of the Groningen Forum. And we have the team basically, the core team that we are now with, together with Peter Heijmans. He's sitting there. He's not one of the partners, but I consider him as part of the core team. And he's here also, I'm glad he's here because he's very much part of the team that considers the act of building and the making of architecture so important. We do a lot of, we have a large variety of projects, which ranges from research to urbanism to architecture. Luckily, in recent years, I would say the last 5 years, there's a shift from a lot of research, which we get a little bit sick of, to be very honest. We did a lot of it, designed by research, we're quite good at it, but our heart is at architecture and at realizing architecture. But as a young office, it takes time to get there, and luckily we're there. Today, I talk about the projects that Juliette already explained briefly, Museumplein Limburg, and firstly the faculty club in Tilburg, which was realized in, I think, 2010. It's a very dear and important project for us. It also was the first public, between inverted commas, project. It's a project for the University of Tilburg. Before that we did mainly houses, conversion of houses, etc. The small projects, typically for young architects, I would say. I organized this lecture in a few parts. I will start a little bit about how we got the commission, how we conceived the design, but the emphasis of the lecture will be on making it real. Like Juliette already explained, how do you translate concept, schematic design into a convincing realized project, because the best project is a realized project. This is the site, was the site where this pavilion for the University of Tilburg is situated. I would say totally unique. Where in Holland can you build in the middle of a forest? Here you see a house that was a former house of the janitor of the university that was to be demolished. This is the site, hardly any context, direct context. It was trees, it was forest, but in the neighborhood it was a little bit isolated, I would say, but still there were three very important buildings which are for me very important in this project. It's these three buildings. They are the first and I would say still the best buildings of the university. There by Jos Bedeau, I hope you guys know this architect. He's an architect from Tilburg up to the 50s, 60s, 70s. And he made some very convincing architecture on the campus. So that's the two things, the first location and these buildings. This is the slab and this is the patio building of Bedeau. That's basically the context, and this is how we sell the project. I say sell because you can say this is the concept, and of course this is the concept, but partly concept and the way you talk about concept comes retroactively. You're conscious about what you do, but in the end, when you put the project out there, and I'm now very open to you, I just say this story is also fabricated. We see the building as a hybrid between two typologies, you could say, between two very architectural typologies. The typology of the glass house that relates to the forest, that has this ultimate relation with the outside, and a monolith, which relates to this monolithic solitary volumes, this, they call it monumental modernism of Jos Bedeau. And these two concepts are merged into one carved out monolith, as we call it. Now the design process. It started actually with something that was very little promising for me as an architect. I got a call by a developer, or actually it was a contractor, who said to me, hey, I have a plan for a conversion of that house that you saw. The university sent it to me, I have to calculate it. They also told me that I could do suggestions to improve the design a little bit. So very, like, it's kind of not the type of commission that you want, since the design was also not at all exciting for me. So I could fine-tune this design or do something else. That was a kind of a dilemma. And luckily I could convince the client to make this document. So in like 2 weeks we created this document with this message. And I will translate it. This was the A3 booklet with this big text, which said the new faculty club, because it was about a faculty club in this existing building. The new faculty club of the university is going to be the business card of the university. Transformation of the existing house doesn't make this true. The proposition is to make a new pavilion totally tailored to the unique location and its program. So this was a message, it was a risk that we took, but what did we have to lose? I didn't have to lose much. What I did, besides this message, I kind of analyzed the building and the proposal. For that I could, and in that way I could somehow extract the program out of it, and I gave them a couple of variants, way too much by the way, to how you could distribute this program on the site to make something very exciting. And I didn't expect much from this. I thought it's a long shot, maybe it works out, maybe not. And to my surprise, this is maybe also good to show, these were a couple of references that I added of, let's say, pavilions in the green. In this case, two, let's say, American modernists, Mies and Breuer, which I kind of like because I thought it is a representative building, it's a chic building, and this kind of modernism suits very well because it's a modernism that deals with notions such as comfort, in contrast to European modernism. And then there was a more, let's say, a contemporary pavilion by Sejima. But then the surprise was that the university reacted incredibly positive to this proposal. And I say the university, and I have to say actually the president of the university. And from that moment onwards, actually the project became the baby of that president, which he acted actually as the mayor of the university. He was very much focused, like a lot of mayors are, or elderly men in municipalities. They want to build something. They want to, whenever the time is up, they want to have something realized. So that was incredible. From that moment on, it was transformed from a very poor, uninteresting commission to almost a dream commission, because the guy also had a budget. They gave us a program, and they asked us to make a sketch design in a month. Again, we worked with variants. That's kind of a theme of the office. We believe in survival of the fittest. We make a lot of proposals, and the strongest proposal will eventually win. Not necessarily chosen by us, but chosen by all the forces that work onto that commission. For us, context is not what I just told, the forest and the buildings. Context is also your client. Context is much more than the physical context. Anyway, we made a compact building, a very cheap building in our view, out of wood, kind of modest. We made a patio building, and we made a cross, which we thought was the most exciting. I say we, but by the time I was kind of a one-man office. The cross I thought was the most exciting, so I made the most beautiful renderings. This is, by the way, the compact version with a central restaurant for like 80 people, 2 conference rooms, a lounge, kitchen, and some services, and a big terrace and ramp integrated in one volume. But this I wanted to push, and somehow, because this guy was so excited about the idea, everybody, even his staff, thought he would choose this. And we rendered it kind of appealing in contrast to the other ones. But he surprised us again. He chose for the basic variant, the cheap one. But he said, maybe you can change the material into the material that you use for the patio, which in the end was, I think, a very lucky decision. And first we were very disappointed. I was very disappointed. Because I thought, I had my mind set to this cross, I thought it was the most exciting, etc. Later on, I actually realized that it was also a chance, because he chose for this variant with less facade, with less building cost. There was a lot of budget left to make this building into a building with very project-specific materials, details, etc. And that was exactly what this carved out monolith, that was very basic, very simple, needed to make into architecture, in my opinion. So we quickly changed our renderings into natural stone instead of wood, and a couple of months later, we were at Welstand, which is a Dutch beauty committee, because there was quite a rush in this project, and sometimes we are very annoyed by projects which are in a rush, but it's actually a very good thing, because then you also, then there's not such a thing that you have to wait every time for ages. But why I show this drawing is because in the Welstand meeting, we already worked out, and Peter was joining me by that time already, there were already 50 details involved in this drawn in this building. They were very principal details, very basic details, but we, from a very early stage in this project, we realized that details and material will make this project. I want to go through a few aspects which I think are relevant in this building, but generally they're relevant in making architecture, building. Firstly, structure. This was one of these principal details that we made, and it's a very simple detail about a roof edge. But it has a lot of consequences. One thing was that we wanted the roof edge to be 500 millimeters, to somehow be as thick as the ground. It has 2 slabs, and we wanted the upper slab more or less as thick as the other slab. That gives, of course, a certain limitation to how thick the construction can be. And from a very early stage, we knew that we would have to make this building in a combination of concrete floors and steel supports, because the concrete floor is good for the heat accumulation with this flat roof. And the steel structure was very relevant because, and that I should have told you before, one of our key ambitions was to make a building that was purely about form and space. And we thought detail, installation, construction should be all invisible. So we were not interested in a tectonic building that shows how the forces are. We were interested in creating a carved out mass. Anyway, we asked the constructor to somehow hide the construction. He came up with 3 variants, from which we chose this variant because we could hide all the columns. There would not be a single column in view in this proposal, but the problem was exactly that roof package, that this one beam became slightly too high. So then we had to go into compromise mode. We had to see what is now more important, the roof package, it becomes 60, 70, or these columns. And in the end we decided to accept 2 columns, very slim columns, I will show them later maybe. And we also did another compromise, because in the VO we had ceilings made of natural stone, so the natural stone would really run not just in the floor but also in the ceiling on. Very heavy, very expensive. And these 2 compromises were made in order to create this detail, which allowed us to make exactly the roof package that we wanted to make. This is the final construction. I'm not going to go too much into detail, but there is quite long, big cantilevers in this steel structure. And this is then the result, and I show this picture to somehow emphasize that idea of mass versus carved out. This whole restaurant, there's and this lounge, there is no column to be seen, but there is I told you 2 very thin columns, I think around 60, that we in the end accepted. Then the mechanical installation was a similar story, also about the roof package. And just to tell you why we thought it was important, we didn't want a roof of 1 meter here. We wanted to have something similar. We worked first with an installation advisor, and that was also the time that I learned that I should not work with installation advisors, but I should work with installation contractors. And the lucky thing of this project was that we did it in a building team. That's its format, how to build, meaning that contractors and subcontractors are in an early phase involved in the project, which is a very lucky thing if you want to make this architecture like we wanted to make. But first we had this installation advisor. She said, okay, we need a lot of people here. There will be, I believe, 250 people maximum in this building. So we need huge air ducts in the ceiling, because we bring in the air from the ceiling and we suck it in the ceiling. That's the way we do things. We make a système plafond, a suspended ceiling. So the roof package again became like a meter. Then came this other firm, the actual people that really knew how to make things. Talking about making architecture, making installation is also an art. He, or this person, he came up with a concept to invert the whole, let's say, ventilation scheme of the building. He said, we're not going to do it all from the ceiling, we're going to do it from the floor, and we're going to suck it from the wall. So he came then with this element, which he used in swimming pools a lot, this system. It's like a slit in the floor where the air comes out, and we're going to suck it from the walls and interior elements in the building. So what we did, we introduced, and I googled it, it's a crawl space, een kruipruimte, underneath the building, which was kind of natural because we also wanted to lift the building a little bit from the earth. And that was anyway part of the design. We put all the mechanical installations in the ground, because of course we didn't want to put it on the roof on such a perfect volume. Now here's some drawings that we ended up with in terms of installations, where you can see that we really somehow condensed all the installations in these interior elements and partly in underneath the roof. And this is an installation space, and here you see, you hardly see it, here the air comes in and here the air is going out. Window frames. The building is incredibly simple. Every facade has only one window, and we wanted this window not to be windows, we wanted them to be openings. We wanted actually not to see anything, just a hole. That this was one of the principal details that we made. This is a detail that you guys know it's used quite a lot, but it's not so obvious to make it. It's quite difficult to make it, but we managed to make it where the fixed glazing is. So this is then the effect. You hardly have any, let's say, frame disturbing the openness, and you have somehow a maximum relation, of course, between inside and outside on floor level and ceiling level. But the challenge was more in the back facade, where we had this 18-meter long terrace. That we wanted to open up maximum in a maximum sense. So and usually frames of sliding doors are rather fat, even if you make them out of steel. Then we found this company, Skyframe. It's a Swiss company, and here it becomes clear that it was actually lucky that we had a budget. There was a budget of around $1 million for a building that was around 500 square meters, which is a really nice budget to work with. It's almost double the budget of the project that I will show afterwards. We found this system, and what's nice about this system is not just that it exists as the only one in a 4-rail system. This image is of a 2-rail system, but there's a 4-rail system. It's amazing. The amount of frame that you see here is limited to less than 2 centimeters. This is done by making the glass constructive. So the glass is not carrying the frame. Sorry, the frame is not carrying the glass. The glass is carrying the frame, so the frame is basically there just to protect the glass a little bit. That opens up a whole spectrum of possibilities, of course, how to open up the back facade. In the end we chose for this variant, in which we basically open the whole restaurant and the whole lounge fully. Natural stone, the most exciting part, I would say, of this whole building. We wanted the glass to be, the openings to be non-existent. We wanted the mass, the stone, to be as massive, as heavy as possible. We made actually a BIM model avant la lettre. We made every single detail we actually built in AutoCAD, in our old-fashioned AutoCAD way. I guess you guys don't use all Revit, but we are still AutoCAD. So we built everything 3D, and this image was for us important for the natural stone. What we did in order to make the natural stone as massive as possible, we came up not with that tiled pattern that I showed before. We came up with what they call a Roman pattern of varying stones. We came up with L-shaped corners around the windows. We came up with a size of natural stone that's very uncommon, and actually it's the edge of what is technically possible, the same actually for the glass. And we came up with a corner that is in verstek in Dutch. I googled it, it's called mitter. So it means that you don't see, none of the places has priority over the other, it's a diagonal. Last but not least, we wanted to have seams of 3 millimeters or as thin as possible. And before, like ages ago, that was quite possible when they put natural stone in mortar. They stick natural stone to a facade and they put it in mortar, and then you can make very slim seams. But nowadays that's not allowed anymore in Holland, since in Rotterdam a couple of stones fell off a building, and now we are obliged to make natural stone facades with stainless steel anchors, which are more safe. This is the Musso color that we used. It is the same Musso color as Jos Bedeau used in his buildings, and then you can cut a stone like this. This is the way they come out of the earth. You can cut it like this, and it's called Imlage, and you can cut it like this, and it's called Gegenlage, but we had to use Imlage because our plates were 160 by 160, the biggest ones, and that's only possible in Imlage. Then we asked the first samples, and we got this sample back from the manufacturer that we found, actually, that we thought was the best in Holland. And this was slightly polished, and we really thought, yeah, this is not what we want, it's so dark. But luckily, the backside of this thing looks like this. So we called the guy, and we told him, hey, we like actually the backside much better of your sample. And he said, yeah, I also have that very often with women. And yes, and yes, you can use it. It was for us an amazing thing, because we thought suddenly, yeah, this is exactly what we want. Talking about the seams, I talked about this seam here. Normally it's 10 millimeters, standard seam. If you use these stainless steel anchors, we wanted to go much more minimal. And this same guy, Twan Smets van Stockholm Natuursteen, he came with this detail to say you make a cut out of the natural stone, partially, and you put the anchor in there, and then we can make seams of 3 millimeters or 2.6. So then this is the facade, how it's made. This is a very happy design team, because there was the first moment that we could touch the building, and yeah, it was very exciting. This is the detail of that facade: minimal seams, pattern, structure, etc. And this is one of my favorite parts of the building if it concerns the natural stone. There was a comment on the zine. Somebody thought this was out of a solid block of natural stone, and of course it's two blocks with that mitre that I was talking about. And this is exactly what, this was the biggest compliment we actually got on this facade, because that was our intention in monolith. In the end, architecture is not about all the separate elements that I was discussing, it's about how they come together, and I want to show one building knot, which for me is the most cool of the project. It's where the glass house, so two glass facades on the corner meet the monolith, and that's this wall. I'm not going to explain them all. Here you see the four-track sliding system. Here you see the natural stone wall. This is a horizontal section, vertical section, other vertical section of the cantilever of the terrace. Here you actually see that system where this is the air duct, and here you have 1 centimeter gap in the stone floor to the intake of the natural stone. And this is then exactly that facade that I find somehow that we sell later as a hybrid between glass house and solid, from the other side, from the inside, and one more time from the inside. Then in this project we learned for the first time that the project is only finished after you did the PR properly. Something I was completely unfamiliar with, but I somehow got to do it in this project, and it worked out. It got published quite a lot on the web and in magazines, and even Philips and Skyframe put it in their documentation. And I tell this not that why it's important. Of course, it's nice to see a project online, and it's nice for the ego. But it's much more important for getting known and potentially get other clients. And that's exactly what happened with this building. I'll show you later. We also got some nominations and some prizes. This is actually a very interesting text on why they didn't give this pavilion the AM&E prize. I read it actually for the first time for this lecture. I never read it because we didn't get it. And it's a very good text. Why they didn't give it. There was a huge debate in the jury whether to give it or not. Some people were tending towards it or not. But they said basically that it was in the middle of the crisis, and they wanted to nominate the project, or to let the project win that does more with the crisis, that reacts better to the zeitgeist. And this was, of course, completely contra zeitgeist. This is about the act of building, something that we do for thousands of years. But we won this prize, a very commercial German design, Red Dot Design Award. And that exact award made it possible, or led us to the commission of this project, because the director of this museum, it's a museum in Kerkrade, he wanted to build, to extend this museum with 2 new museums, one Red Dot Design museum and a so-called Earth Lab. And he googled who won this prize, and it was Ben van Berkel and us, and this is how we were invited for the tender and won the tender for this project. And now I have to look at the clock, because I think I'm really way too... how long?
20 minutes.
Okay. Then I can talk a little bit less fast. Where was I? I will first tell you a little bit about the task of this project. It's about this museum. If you see the shapes of this museum, it's really quite specific. It's designed by Rijn van Wielik in a time that some, but I don't know very many, architects in Holland were slightly influenced by deconstructivism. He was actually in this commission I read in a very old newspaper of the time. He won this actually against Meccano, and it is, when he won it, it was an industry museum. Before it was a mining museum, and now when we got the commission, it was a science museum, and we were supposed to transform it into a museum quarter, so a science museum with a design museum with Earth Lab. And what that is, I will explain you a bit later. The red line was a project site, and we had to insert quite a lot of volume, a lot of square meters, which was a big challenge because over the site, here is the train station of Kerkrade, here is the center of Kerkrade, it's a Dutch town by the way in Limburg, this is a very important public route that was also part of our site. Just a schematic representation, the site, the route towards the central square and the central station. Here you see also a little reference to Parc de la Villette. This was the entrance, but in general the building was not very appealing, if I can say so. It was a kind of a collection of buildings with very little relation to the city, and this was actually the best facade. But the best feature of the whole museum was a sunken area, because this was the entrance, this was a sunken area, and I don't say it's beautiful or something, but it worked. It was really lively. This is a museum also for kids a lot, and there was a lot of playing going around, so that was a really nice feature. Here you can see that it's for kids. It's also represented almost like an amusement park. This was a wing that was later added to even make it more heterogeneous, I would say. And this was a program, an art theater and a design museum, and together it was called Sea City by that time. Now in Limburg. What is the Earth Theater? The Earth Theater is actually a very simple thing. Let's say a very specific thing. It's you guys know planetarium, I guess, where you watch into a projection or watch into a cupola. This is the inverse. So you watch into a cupola or into a bowl, in which one can project many things. It looks very unspectacular, but it is quite spectacular. It was the first one in Europe, and it was the biggest one, blah, blah, blah. That's the Earth Theater. And this is the Design Museum. And besides these two new functions, also a lot of added program had to be realized. So there was kind of a shared program, such as conference spaces, shops, entrance, restaurant, and then more the back side offices and logistics. So besides these two things, it was much more than that, and it was a complete museum quarter, you would say. Again, at that time we were crazy about making options. That has changed a little bit, I must say. We are not so fanatic about that anymore. But again, we made a lot of options. Also, not necessarily for the sake of making options, but also to trigger actually at the client, what do you really want? Because it wasn't very well defined. When we got the commission, we didn't have a fixed program. The director, a very energetic and interesting figure, he knew more or less what he wanted, but not exactly. So this kind of studies helped him a lot, and in the end he asked us to work out these four a bit more elaborate. One was to wrap the whole building, so to basically solve that very amorphous shape. One was to take that sunken square in the theme of the project and extend it and bury the Earth Lab. The other one was to take actually the fragmentation of that existing museum even a step further and to make some kind of scattered extension. And the last one was what we called by that time the connector. It had one volume penetrating the existing. Here a sunken Earth Lab, and here the Design Museum. He chose for this one. because he wanted to see actually 3 museums, and it was not very clear from the start, but that he kind of realized from this study. So he wanted really the plan to have to show basically a unity, but at the same time the 3 separate entities. So we came up with this scheme as a concept, one connecting thing that also houses all these shared facilities, and the existing museum and the 2 new museums. We changed that into what by that time we thought this was our VO. This is that penetrating volume. This is the design museum. We moved this volume there because it was very unlucky here, and we thought that VO was finished when we presented this, and we did present it. And to our very big surprise, he said, "No, this is not going to be it. I have second thoughts." I have second thoughts because I don't believe, this was also based on information that he had from the municipality, that this was a very tricky position for this volume, and that the municipality had said that this route between the station and the center was basically very much harmed by our proposition, even if we thought this is a very exciting moment. So he said, okay, I need a VO in 2 weeks because of the planning. So we had to make a new VO, which dealt with that position of this earthlet volume and the position of the connector, because he said, yeah, I do like the connector actually. So we came up with this scheme, which very much is thought from the idea of architecture defining public space, defining the route between the station and the center. But of course, this thing is not so much a connector anymore, it's more a separator between 2 new volumes and 2 existing volumes, so we needed to be very smart about that, because it was at the same time a unity. That we solved by making an underworld, I will come to that later, that basically stitches the whole project together. Here you can see how this connector, which I will call beam from now on, creates really this, let's say, this urban gesture. The project is again very simple, very much about form, I would say. We love form, and we love strong form. It's a beam, it's a cube, and it's a sphere. Some images from the other side. Here, this connection, which suddenly became very important. Here, how it looks from when you enter Kerkrade, so it also has quite a strong landmark function. I am really a bit allergic to the term iconic, but it has an iconic quality in itself. Then the section, which is, I think, very revealing, because besides these perfect volumes on the street level, there is a whole world underneath that basically connects all these programs, and it makes all these programs fit on this site that was actually very small. And this underworld basically comes from that sunken area that is extended underneath the whole building, and that became one of the most important spaces of the project, also a public space. This is the Earth Lab, so you see the cupola, but in reality that thing is 13 meters dug into the ground. This was our rendering. This is an image that was very important to us. We wanted to make a worm eye perspective, which you could also say a miner's perspective, which shows basically the importance of that, or let's say that the 2 worlds, the upper world, perfect platonic volumes, and the down world, which is much more intricate. Again, structure, what was important to us here. And I have to say something about the budget, and I have to say something about the way this was done, because the faculty club, we did it all the way until the very end, until the execution drawings. We were monitoring the site, we did everything ourselves. Here it was a different thing. Here we were asked to make it into what they call a DO+, Definitive Design Plus, and from that moment onwards the contractor would do the engineering. But of course, DO+, what is a DO+? You can decide for yourself. You can make it as big, as small as you want. So what we did was making DO+ very, very, very much towards more than a DO+. In other words, to draw many details. But the budget of the building was also very low. I would say more or less half of the faculty club. And we had to pick our battles. We had to choose very specifically where we put the money, where we put the effort, because the third issue about this project was that from that VO that I showed until when the building had to be finished, there was more or less 1.5 years. So it was incredible the pace that this project had to take. Structure. I was at structure, and I think I have to hurry again because I took my time, but there's still a few things to talk about. We wanted this beam that is basically marks the entrance to this underworld by 2 big stairs. We wanted it to float as much as possible in order to make that transparency that we were very excited about between public and between a museum. The museums in Holland, many of them, they lack this relation. They're very much projects in themselves that are very much, I shouldn't talk about Holland, museums in general. They are very much about themselves, rather about what they define. And what we liked about the design that we came up with is that it really does something with the city and that it has a relation to the city. So in that way we wanted here maximum transparency and here maximum openness. So that whole beam had to float as much as possible, and we told the constructor, which was Habité, which luckily we could involve in this process, Walter Spangenberg, we told him, hey, we want a hybrid construction that you cannot read. So again, it's not about tectonics in a way, it's about an effect. We want you to create a structure that needs very little supports, and you need to use all the supports that are there already, like the elevator shaft and the wall for the stairs, etc. In the end, he came up with this proposal, truss beams, and I won't go into detail, but in the end we managed to reduce the columns to the both entrances, so that's basically 80 meters, one here and 80 meters further there, and these stairs are actually on both sides. So there's a stair towards the station, it's here, and there's a stair towards the center of town. And then the shaft and the wall of the stair, and 2 other places where we needed construction. So it was a very hybrid construction, and this was one thing that we agreed from the very start. In the very end, the contractor came to us and he said, I need an extra column, please give us an extra column, because it saves us many, and then we gave him basically this column. This column is a reference to one of, I think, the best building I know. I hope I don't have to say which. This is the floating effect, the canopy that we wanted to create, completely columnless. This is the interior construction of the dome, and of course the part under the ground. 30 meters building under the ground is quite difficult. I don't go into that now because it doesn't have any architectural implications. This is the space that was basically realized under the ground. This is how you look onto these movies that they make in this museum. This is a floor that is hanging in that dome to create an auditorium. It's created like a wheel. I'm also not going into that because I want to focus a little bit on how to create the shell. There were a few limitations. One, there's a lot of sound being produced in this place, really amazing. So that couldn't go all the way into the public domain. And at the same time we wanted, and it had to be cheap, and it had to be, in our view, seamless. We didn't want to see seams. So we came up with shotcrete, spuitbeton, and we said we want, and we had seen a project luckily that was exactly realized like this, the Champignon Museum, the Mushroom Museum. Super interesting guy, and we developed basically the system of doing this. It has EPS isolation and on 2 sides shotcrete. But our contractor thought, no, I'm not going to work with a guy that did the Mushroom Museum, I'm going to do it smarter. He agreed with us with the shotcrete, but he wanted to make a difference. And he made this mock-up, and he said, I'm going to make it with, now I lose the name of scaffolding. I make a geodesic dome out of scaffolding, and that geodesic dome I'm going to fill in with the EPS that you need and want. That's like this. All straight elements, not CNC cut, no difficult, really easy. So like that I make a huge egg. And then I'm going to put the shotcrete on both sides. Of course, there's reinforcement, steel, etc. And he made it through. It's amazing. The other way of making it was with, and basically the scaffolding is still in there, right? It's not really constructive. It helps a bit, but it was there to make this eggshell to make the shotcrete on top. So I thought it was so smart and really amazing. The other option that we had told him to do it like was to make it with a temporary construction inside, which had also worked at the Mushroom Museum, but like this they again could what they call value engineering, which is to cut cost and in a smart way not lose quality. Sometimes you do lose quality, I'll show you later. This is how it then looks. This is that auditorium that I was talking about on top. Then I'm not going to talk about this construction, it's very basic. We didn't want to put any money in it. Still, we thought it was very exciting to work with these concrete panels and to show it in the interior of the museum, because what I like about the museum in a way is that we were very selective of where design goes to and where money goes to. And where you keep it kind of undesigned and rough, but undesigned can be much more attractive than designed in the end, and the combination of two I find very exciting in this project. One of the challenges there was to make it float, but I won't go into that. We permitted ourselves one kind of design element in that interior, and that was the stair. Again, very basic, just prefab stairs, all of the same size, but by giving them a different inclination on every level, you create basically communication between people using that stair. And in a vertical museum, because it was a vertical museum, it's 24 meters high, this was an important thing to us. But the facade of this volume was for us one of these things that were very dear and very important to us. We wanted to make an industrial facade just like more or less the existing museum had. But the existing museum used an industrial facade just exactly the same way they use it in Dutch business parks. And we wanted that type of material, but at the same time give it a shift. What we didn't want in this height, and from here to here it's 21 meters, we didn't want to see the seams, because then you see basically every time, okay, another plate. We studied if it exists 21 meter high plates. It does exist actually, but we didn't make it happen. In the end, we chose for another strategy, and that's to make the plates incredibly small. They become profiles, and then you can make the seams to start varying with them, and make these individual profiles also in a different shapes, in 3 shapes. So you really make a curtain. You put them randomly next to each other. And like that you really stress the verticality and you create a really nice play, we think, with light. We found a very nice manufacturer that made actually already a building like this in Schiphol. He extrudes these profiles, and by that you can also, they are made out of aluminum, which has, of course, when you anodize it and when you polish it, has a super beautiful reflection property. So that's what we proposed, and because of the thickness of the material, it's 3 millimeters, it would also not get damaged at the ground floor. But the contractor did again some value engineering, and I'm talking about the contractor, and I don't want to be denigrating at all, because we had an amazing contractor, I must say, and we're super happy with this family business that we dealt with, and that we in the end chose to make this building because we were part of the jury. But they came up with steel plates, not extruded aluminum, much cheaper. They saved 150,000 euro by not making out of aluminum but out of steel. But that meant that you cannot make it out of anodized material. You have to coat it. We were very afraid that the coating will never be as kind of nice, reflective, taking the color of the sky. In the end we accepted, and we are still quite happy with this facade, and it still plays very nicely with light when there's sunlight it works like this. When it's a bit darker or the sun is on the other side, it's like this. So we're still very content with how it turned out. I'm not going to talk about the facade of the beam. If I talk about the facade of the beam, I also should talk about the ceiling, which is basically a facade. It's a huge struggle all the time to get people not wanting suspended ceilings. At least in the Faculty Club and here it was the same. In the end we managed, luckily. But I'm not going to talk about it because I'm going to finalize this presentation with talking a little bit about the underground world. Here you see it. This is basically that entrance situation that I was talking about. Underneath that beam, a stair towards the station, a stair towards the center. And here you have that square that I was talking about that really runs on all over the place. Also underneath the Design Museum is the plan of that. These are the renderings. We thought one tool to get clear to everybody what we want. We make a lot of rendering, so the whole building, every single corner was rendered out, and it was actually part of the tender documents. So we could always refer to the renderings next to the details. This rendering was made later, of course, with Photoshop for the PR. All floors, walls and stairs of this underworld are made out of this concrete, and it was very exciting to us because usually it becomes exciting for an architect, let's say, when they start finishing a building. Here they started these walls, these red walls, they were keermuren, they were also construction. This was also a reason why we could do it, because it was quite cheap to make it like this, instead of cladding it. But very early in the process it was there. That's also the time that everybody was still very sharp, luckily, and in the end the contractor made a system of a systeemkist, so formwork, very simple formwork that they use always, and in that formwork they put latte, because I didn't tell you what we actually wanted. We didn't want just red, we also wanted a pattern of this old-fashioned wooden timber formwork, because it also reminded us a little bit about mines, and we wanted to make this whole world not just have a warm color, but also have a tactile feel to it. And we thought that kind of pattern does that. And it worked out. This was quite early in the process. We were incredibly happy with the result. It was slightly different color than we expected maybe in the end, but it has a bit of a salmon color, and sometimes it's a little bit pinkish, sometimes a really deep red, and we really like the idea of this whole underworld to be earthly and have the feel of an excavation. Some details of how that red world, let's say, meets other worlds. I'm not going to talk about it, it's about transparency, but I think over time. Here you see that this really starts to work like an excavation, basically, because everything is that color. And of course you see color differences, but we can totally accept it. This is about the same detail that I was talking about earlier, this kind of cliché detail, architects wanting inside-outside to relate. And here we didn't dare to make it flush, and we accepted 20 millimeters of difference, and then we also learned something. It's nothing. So by making the 20 millimeters, which we discussed a couple of weeks about it in the office, in the end it's really nothing. So from the Faculty Club, where we controlled everything and went everything to the very edge of what was possible, to this building I also learned, or we learned a couple of lessons. You, as an architect, you start also learning where to put the focus and where not. And we're still not there. I think you are there. We are not there yet. But what we learned is that some things which we are incredibly fanatic about and neurotic about, sometimes it's also not necessary. And this is a little example of that. I want to end with this picture. It's one of my favorite pictures. It shows that underworld and that kind of earthly character, and also the reference to the mining corridors. Thank you.
Go on for a second part of the evening. I realized that I was quite short before in the introduction of Liesbeth, so I would like to add a few things. Well, it's interesting that also Liesbeth van der Pol was one of the Art Prix winners, so apparently there is always a whole career after Art Prix going on. She started quite soon after graduating in Delft her office and founded the office with her partner Herman Zijnstra, which first was called Zijnstra van der Pol Architects, and later in a different configuration it became DOC Architects, and since a while she is now alone as head of the office of DOC Architects, as Herman Zijnstra retired from the office. But what's very interesting, at least to me, is that for some years Liesbeth van der Pol has been chief state architect, and well, in that period, of course, looking in a different way towards an office, because being chief state architect is a very intensive role. Apart from that, well, the office has been doing always a big variety of projects, from housing, in the beginning doing a lot of housing, public buildings, schools, very renowned schools, musea, well, you name it, you made it, I think. So we are very curious to see how you are perceiving the making architecture. So, well, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me upstairs there as well? Oh, wonderful. Well, I'm really glad to be here. Thanks for asking me in this specific place. Actually, Eindhoven is not the university where I was grown. I'm a Delft one. And actually, it was the Art Prix, and I was very young, that gave me the opportunity of having my first commission. Or my first job, and well, I looked completely different, but I'm still the same person with the same character. Tonight I would like to talk with you about the making of architecture. And of course, what is architecture? Is it only a hull that can contain an activity, like living, for example? And that's it? Is it only functionality? Is it making, like we heard this beautiful lecture in which detailing actually takes the role of architecture? Or is there something else? What do we want from architecture? It's the way it is done. The space is covered that makes it move you, makes your emotion roll, makes your heart beat. And actually, that is what I want and expect of architecture that we make today. So, one of our jobs was in the outskirts of Amsterdam called Twiske. And it was an area, it was in the time, in the 90s, when there was a really experimental atmosphere of housing typology. Specifically the clients, for example, how do you call them, well, social housing clients.
Housing corporation.
Housing corporation, that was the word I was seeking. They were up to all sort of experiments that days. So they want for me to make 200 apartments in that area. But it was a beautiful area with a lot of water and a lot of, in the polder, and a lot of green and water and around. And I thought, how could you make apartments over there? We should invent a way of housing in which you could have a garden. So we were measuring that a circle actually has the best brutto netto comparison of all forms. And at the same time, I thought it was fantastic that if this is your kitchen and this is your living room and that are your bedrooms, that means this is some kind of DNA housing. And that if seven of those DNA strips will go around each other, you would go completely mad and at the same time have sun in your house. And we started to convince the client with drawings like this. Actually, we did it 3D, but by hand. How do you do it? How do you draw? I think every computer drawing, first of it in your head is something that you want to draw. And I do it with a watercolor, or I do it with just like this. So we were drawing what is can it fit on the situation? And the sun always go around the circle. You see very little shade actually. So if you live in a house about 180 degrees, you will definitely have sun one period in a day. Fantastic. All the skills were right. So this is how we made it. Can you imagine the detailing of this thing? The electric wire went like a DNA strip over. So this is the kitchen. This is the living room. And the sleeping rooms you cannot even see. If you see the plan itself, so you come in here, from there you go to the kitchen, you go up, and then you have the living room, and you go up, and then you have the sleeping rooms. It's crazy! And it's wonderful. This is how it came out. We did it very easy. The detailing is completely easy. It is a wooden double frame for the facade, and some concrete prefabricated schuurtjes on the ground floor. And people loved it. And it's social housing. It is the no-money area of architecture. Does it make your heart beat? Is it beautiful? What is beauty? It works, it's efficient. I always have this dream of all these men coming out of these doors with their aktentas. Is it beautiful or is it only efficient? What is beauty? And is it important? Actually, in the list of requirements, the word beauty is never mentioned. We talk about durability, we talk about square meters, we talk about zero emission, but we never talk about beauty. This is beautiful. This is absolutely beautiful. And now the world is divided into two halves. You have the normal people, they see that it's beautiful, and you have architects. They can also sense that it's beautiful. And the difference between the two is actually only that architects can point out, literally touch, what it is that makes your heart beat. Can you do it? Can you understand it? I can. If I look at it, it's the poles are too high, so the feet, the legs are too thin, and the weight is too high. And this was too large, and it couldn't cope symmetrically on the beams and on the feet. And the nose is not in the middle. Your nose is not in the middle. And it's beautiful. That is what makes your heart beat. It is a character like no other character. And actually, I'm always somehow attracted to that sort of character. So when I got a commission to make in Polder large, a big housing project in the beginning, I thought of that sort of industrial buildings, and I want to do it as well. As well. And of course, I was thinking about how do you live there. So if the dwellings over here look over the polders, that is wonderful, and the ones here have contact with the water, wonderful. But I must admit that I'm driven by beauty of the memory of some of the other buildings, and there's nothing wrong. Sometimes I sort of feel ashamed to admit it. You don't have to. I was in love with the long lines of the polder, and I was in love of these structures. Look how beautiful they are. They support these electricity wires, and they stand like this, and you can feel that it's hard. The weight, it's an enormous weight. These wires are very heavy. So to do that, you have these large sort of milkmaids. And I thought, I make something that copes with that. And so all the three of them can together make something you, if you're going to live there and have a house, be extremely proud of being in the polder. And that's what we did. This is what came out. And the red color, of course, goes very well with green. And yeah, what do I like best? This one? Maybe. It is made, for this project I also climbed into several silo buildings in France just to measure what was the exact profiling of the steel. And of course that sort of fashionable cladding that we know was not deep enough. And so therefore we chose to make this really deep, and we made some detailing around the water, the rain wires, just to take care that you could see it, and it's not, but it's well done. And does it make your heart beat? I must say that this makes my heart beat. Someone lives there and made out this building its nest, his own nest. He or her is living there. And that makes that this building can cope with human being. There's a human being living there. And actually everywhere. And that is important of architecture. In architecture, I think one of the things you should do is make a building be able to cope with a human being, on equality. And so if you walk away as an architect, you should have enforced the building with such character that it can stand alone with all these people, and you don't have to be there to explain. And it still stands. That is my goal. So I work a lot with associations, so to speak. So what is your association with this picture? It was a coal storage building, so you see heavy poles here that keep all the coals inside. And so I drew all the poles to keep all the people inside and to keep up the building. And we're talking the 90s now, and it was absolutely not fashionable to make a roof. But I thought it was such fantastic force. The force that come out of these poles should weight something that has this end with all these roofs as well. And I was dreaming of glass houses like this. So the difference between the brick and the house and glass is enormous. And actually drawing details, these are the details. And it was fashionable at that time to do all the small wooden stripes buildings, so very, very slick. But it didn't fit with my industrial, huge, large, enormous building. And I was trying other things, so not stripes, but then poles and then pillars and then again, and you can see in a drawing like this, drawing and afterwards you cannot even see what I'm thinking. And that is also a benefit of making watercolors. They take very long. And that means you have a very long time to look at your drawing and to look at your building and to overlook, overthink if the idea is right, what you're working on. Well, this is what came out. And of course, it has a very strong association with the former building and also with something from the past. And I once a taxi driver that brought me here, and I said, you have to go to that new building. And he said, oh, mevrouwtje. One thing, this building is here for as long as I am living in Amsterdam, and that is very, very long a lifetime. And then I was really doubting, am I still a modern architect? Am I fashionable? Not, maybe not. And I want to teach you that, learn that. Making architecture is not making only the magazine architecture. You will notice that you're in a train while doing your job, and there will be another train that goes to another direction, and another one that goes faster and it goes in another direction. And you're not in it, you're in your train. And your train is slow, maybe slow. And then I ask, and I'd like to learn you, please follow your own focus. And so keep focused on the thing you are searching for. I tried to do that as well. I had a fantastic commission. Is opdrachtcommission? Nee, hè? Commission. Engels is niet zo goed. I had a commission for a depot of the Maritime Museum in Amsterdam. And a depot is actually a place where you store the most fantastic objects, valuable objects. The history of the Netherlands is in there, in the dark. So it's not a museum and you cannot go there. So the idea is fantastic. The building you cannot go in, there's no light in. There's only a lot of installation around it, and the installation has to be there to keep those objects dry and in the perfect temperature, etc. So what you have is actually a structure and a lot of pipes, and you cannot come in. You are not welcome. And you want to go in because you want to see those pictures and you want to see those objects. I try to draw these things quite literally. So it is on the side of the marine, and I sold it to them as a submarine. And of course it's not a submarine, but it's behind a wall, and it's actually, it's done like a dose-in-dose construction. Okay? So you see literally the storage of the object here, and all the installation is inside here. And if there is a flighting staircase, like here a fire staircase, then the facade is just popped out a little bit, and that's all together became the form of this building, like this. And so you see, this is the storage on the first floor. Here you see the fire staircases and the other staircases for the objects. And then on top are the installation, and actually all over the place are the installations in between the two boxes. That's the system. But what does it do? When does it make your heart beat? I think that is, and there we go, there we have the same idea about how to make architecture. Finally, this is titanium. It is a 0.3 millimeter of very high edelmetal, and it is cladded on very easy construction of wood and isolation, and very easy construction of steel beams. And of course, it's about the corners, and it's about how you do the gutter that you have to fold in more or less if it becomes beautiful. And somehow I think this can touch your heart. And it's funny because it has no windows or nothing. hardly an entrance. But it's about the light and the form, and the fact that it is grounded so deeply into the soil of this place. And yeah, I think the idea that we have 17th century beautiful pictures of Rembrandt inside here, and there's this little door where you would like to go in. That's fascinating sort of effects that you can manage with your architecture. I'd like you to do it for yourself, find a way to do it. What are your fascinations? I couldn't stop anymore. I can show a lot of these sort of buildings. This is a building actually only for engines. And it's even more funny. And, well, the engine is inside, and there's a chimney over there, and etc., etc. I even put them on a shopping mall. I make big shopping malls, and all of a sudden I found myself, this is a La Place. And they like it, they love it, people love it. So it's not only it's not only me that is driven to this sort of forms and expression. The La Place. Here you see all the people. This is a La Place with 2 stories, and here are all the installation, and it's also titanium. And I sold them as a horse. Doesn't matter. And I like to draw. It's wonderful to do. You know what? It's about fantasy. For quite a bit, my work is about fantasy. What is yours? Architecture is about fun and fantasy. Absolutely. Creativity. This is a horse. No doubt. This is my office now. It's my office. This was my former partner, Herman. He's my husband still. And you see all the people here. We were 65 people, and then the crisis came, and then we became very, very small, and 13, and now we're 19 or 20 or so. And, well, you asked me, how do you do it? Yeah, we do it with, of course, these drawings. Well, you've seen it now. Some of the drawings are made digitally. We do also the Revit form. We do Archicad, but it's more or less the same. So we do the BIM process. So all the detailing and all the drawing and all the modeling is in Archicad, and a lot of modeling in real. So that are actually the design methods we use in the office. Here you see me we have a lot of hammocks in the office because that's sort of place to rest, and you can easily draw there. We do duo talks. That means you learn from each other while talking and while just taking off. What did you do last week and how did it go? We have lunch standing. I don't know why actually, but it's you get so bored. I was sitting all day in these fucking architect offices are so stupid though. And so that's what we try. So we have the wall of, this is the work we're doing now. Every single A3'tje is a new work at the moment. So we have a lot of work. And we call this the wall of fame. That means that after a week work, everybody, really everybody, has to put on its A3'tje about his approach for this week onto the wall of fame. And we talk about it. What we do is learning by walking. We have seen already many countries, but we don't go for the architecture, we just go for walking. And we go walking really long, so some of these walks are enormous in Morocco, but also in Oman. We were in Oman, and we do a lot of traveling, and just to walk and to talk and to reflect on Earth. And I do believe that it's a way of creating architecture. Well, what are our goals? Of course, we want to make details. It exists of details. Reuse. We do a lot of reusing of buildings. We do craftsmanship. This is from one of the most beautiful works my partner made. It's in crematorium. And it's completely constructed in wood. And it makes you sad when somebody is dead. But when you are sitting there and you see the trees and the light, and and lights you. So a bit of your your misery is gone by that effect. We do a lot of schools, sometimes durability, sometimes about reuse, etc. Well, we have high technology in music, but actually I'd like to show you two more. How are you? Two more last projects we're working on, or we have been working on. One of my clients is a client that is absolutely specialized in low-rise housing, low-rise building. And he had a lot that was over here, and he wanted to fill it with low-rise building. But the surrounding is also with villa, low-rise building, social housing as well. And there was a big lake. It's in Den Bosch. Here's a big lake. This is the center of Den Bosch. And here at the lake was this fantastic green plot. I thought it's so stupid and so we tried, and of course we did draw what he wanted with the little houses, and well, we sort of made all the analysis you can choose of, but it was absolutely not convincing. And then we started to dream, to say, okay, let's make a park with some really beautiful high-rises in it. And well, then we saw, of course, and this in Eindhoven, this building of Jo Koenen. And here I come to a point. I thought it was a fantastic building, the one of Jo Koenen. It's very sharp and it has a beautiful nose, and I was jealous of that nose. And I think you can, not copy. Of course you should not copy. You should beat the master. You should beat him. I should beat Jo Koenen. I said, I can do better. So that was my goal. I do better than Jo Koenen. So I thought, I make it far more clever, so I make a bit more dwellings on apartments on each layer, and I take care of a far better way of detailing this thing. So I try to make details that are far more convincing to the city and can really communicate with the city. Here you see the floor plan, and so underneath the area is the parking place, it's over here, and over that is the park, so that's for the whole surrounding can make benefit of this park lane. And then you see the three buildings, and they have this sharp nose with large balconies, and this balcony and this balcony, and they have fantastic, they're located very good in the sun, and the one of Jo doesn't have any sun and are far too little. So I thought I beat him already over there. And that's something we never discuss, that you really want to cope and do better. But that's how we learn from each other. That's how we make architecture better. We just do better, better, better. You stand upon each other's shoulders. So please do. So I think I won. Because this is the glass facade is far sharper than the one he did, and this was sold easy. So this was the apartments were so luxuriously done that it was done easily. This, of course, was very easily detailed. This is concrete with a beautiful metselwerk, and actually that's it. And we use everywhere the same little window, but we do it differently. You see over here, here is the window, the glass is detailed in the background of the Negge. Wat was dat ook alweer? Wist je dat? And in other places we put the glass in the front and see what a difference, especially on the north facade, this works perfectly. And so on the north facade, here you can see it very well. This on the north facade, you can make a north facade far more lighter if you detail the glass in front of the whole facade. And well, somehow, so this window is exactly the same as that one, but then still you have a head and the feet, the plinth, and the one in the middle. And those are the tricks that make it happen. And those people also make their nest into my building, so I can walk away because it's theirs now, and I'm proud of being able to walk away. And I loaded the building with enough character to approach with people on, the level of equality, equality. And she is extremely proud. She said, "It's my house, it's wonderful." With Christmas, it was crazy. They all had their Christmas tree in the little glass. That was fantastic. And so people express, this is me. And the building stays the same. The building, the character of the architecture is strong enough to cope with that. We won a prize, which we were very proud of. We had the public prize of the best architecture building in 20 years in Den Bosch. I was really proud. It was fun. I had a client, private client, who had too much money, really too much money. And he recognized in the work we do, he recognized the industrial touch and at the same time the classic touch. He said, I want a Palladio from you and at the same time an industrial building, and it is his own home. And I got really crazy, so I first drew something that he didn't want at all, but that doesn't matter. And so I went on and made a building which is symmetrical and asymmetrical at the same time. And it's done by brick. It is completely built in brick, but real brick. So not cladding the brick to something else, but brick. So you have two layers, two walls of brick in the ground foundation with some isolation in between. It's on a large place like this. This is a sort of landscape. Piet Oudolf made a landscape with, of course, a lake. What can you do without a lake? And it is a square, symmetrical place with some follies that connect the building with its surrounding. And of course, it has these round, sort of classic approach arches. If you wish. But at the same time, it has these super glass window corners that we recognize as modern architecture. I don't know what to tell with it, only then that it is fantastic to be able to work like this. And I'm asking you again, can it touch your heart? Can it touch your emotion? Does it work? Does it work as a typology? I don't know. Of course, it's not a fabric. It's a house, and we did all the detailing here, and it is extreme. We could talk about a couple of hours how we made these steel ladders and how we made these walls, and with these old beams, we bought some old beams, which is not really fair enough. This is the ground. Those are the plans. This is the ground facade. Actually, what you see is a cross building with cross axis. You come in over here. You find two little patios over there. You see the living room, the kitchen, the library, and the flower house. And here you see the entrance of the garage with a folly. And here beneath you see the swimming pool that goes from inside out, and a folly, and another folly. Here is the garage. Well, it's too much to tell. Oh yeah, what is funny is when you get there, there's a staircase, very classical, but not large, but very, very narrow, but it goes in two directions. So you have these classic axes that go through the whole building. Over here. Actually, it's only 80 centimeters wide, but it goes in two directions, which of course is funny because you have to choose. Do I go left or right? And you come into the same area after a while. Detailing this is done stone by stone, so we did work out, because it is very difficult to metal. We worked out every stone, and yeah, of course, moments like this, where the balcony is cut in, so you can see a little, and that is not done above the middle of the window, but the bigger side. We did all the steel structures. This is the swimming pool that goes in and out, and you can really swim out of the house. Oh, this is the shower, which is very funny, because the lady is beautiful. She's absolutely adorable. And this is the shower. She wanted it herself, and you could see that from the road. And then we had to blind it again, because when she went into the shower, she realized that she was standing nude. Last project, because this project, and it was told before, you can do this with a lot of money. But if you don't have any money, this is volunteer. I did this volunteer, and this is for volunteers. In the neighborhood of Deventer, which is where you don't want to be seen at all, it is the last wijk. It's a very poor area with a lot of crime and criminality and trouble. And this was the sort of house of that area, Huis van de Wijk. And it was an old, it was just an old office building, very 80s. And what I asked for, it was an Antilliaan, and it was an Indian, and it was Suriname, and it was from everywhere. And so I took my stagiaire, who was from Iraq, thank God. So we were all nationalities over there. I thought, how can we understand each other? The one wanted to steal the room, and the other wanted to make music, and like that. But then you can see what is the power of architecture. When we drew this, just in sketches and in visuals, they fell in love, and they said, okay, we're going to do it, and we make it ourselves. So what we did, this is the building, this is the existing building, and we didn't take off anything of this building, not even a window. That is because we didn't have any money. So what we did, we isolated it with a thick layer of isolation and painted that. On the roof, to take care of the stukwerk, because that could be harmed very easily, we made that huge canopy. And behind that is solar panels, and the solar panels give energy to light the whole thing and be the zero emission. It's in Deventer, and this is it, and they're so extremely proud. So I think architecture is not about big money, it's about big funny. And this is on Zuidas, a housing project we're working on, and of course here all the things are what they should be. We pick up the rain, and we drain we give the water to the plants with the rain. We pick up the sun, which is in this thing. But what I think is important of the architecture is that it's somehow dances, and it's going to be brick, and it's going to be high, and it's going to be dancing in a way, and the skirts will flow. And can it be done? No. Against gravity. What I'm doing here is absolutely against gravity. But I do. And I think, remember, it's not serious after all, architecture. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you. It was very interesting, very different stories. So that's really, I'll kick off with the questions. Then afterwards, always from the audience, there are all kind of questions coming. I have a first first question to you. When you were talking about the faculty club, you told us that you were called by a contractor who was going to build it. So I was kind of interested in the fact that normally you are being called by a client or a housing corporation or whatsoever, but that you are being called by a contractor that he wants to do a project with you is kind of special. So your first experience with, on a bigger scale, as you explained it, with the project was directly that you are in very close contact with the contractor. So, and how far did that influence the way that you were dealing with the one who built it directly while developing your design?
Yeah, the contractor that called me was my father. He's actually not a contractor. He used to be the director of a firm that does contracting and real estate development. And that brings me actually to maybe an important point. I was very open in my lecture, but I can even be more open. So besides, in Liesbeth's case, winning the RFP was really an important step for me as well. Unfortunately, I won it a little bit late when there was not anymore a 90s party going on. But I had a lot of luck. I would say winning RFP was not just luck, it was also a good project. But my luck was also that my father had this firm. And my first years I got like that some things towards me. That luckily also changed from something really unspectacular or unsatisfying as a commission to something exciting. But to come back to your question, because my father was a contractor, I have a certain affinity with, let's say, construction in general. In that project in specific, like I said, we were working in a BOW team. And a BOW team, I don't know if you guys know what a BOW team is, but a BOW team, you work very from a very early phase together with the people that are going to actually make it. And I have a high appreciation for people that make things, more than that I have an appreciation for consultants that advise. When you make things, you're responsible for what you do. And of course, there was this very warm relation and so BOW team is not always great, I guess, but in this case, there was a lot of trust back and forth. They trusted me as an architect, and I could trust them as a contractor. So for me, that kind of communication from a very early phase, together with the people that were going to make it, and I gave this example of this subcontractor that came up with really solutions of how to do the mechanical installation. Yeah, for me that was super valuable, and that was somehow different in the museum project. But there it worked out for another reason, that we were again lucky to work with a firm, and I actually met a relative of the owner of the firm here in the audience. There we were lucky to work again with a family business. My father also used to be the director of a family business, and they were so incredibly proud of their company and of what they could do, that it was somehow, as an architect, you're so passionate about what you do, you're crazy about your profession, and you don't see that often in other, let's say, people in the construction business, but you do see it sometimes. And family businesses, at least my experience until now, very often have that proud and that passion that we could match. Is that an answer to your question?
Yes, a lot of answers. Yeah. Now, well, maybe also in the beginning of your lecture, you said that you were doing also a lot of research by design. And well, that's nice to see that on the one hand there's this very close also family relation, I understood now, between making things and the craftsmanship, etc. And on the other hand, working very much on a conceptual level of this research by design. So how does that influence that the big deal of your projects maybe will never be built, or are on a scale, maybe large scale, that is not to be built one-to-one, because it's more about strategies or so. So, and how far does it influence the way that you work, that you are dealing with these strategies, and on the other hand, well, with your feet in the concrete, let's put it that way.
Yeah, I think it's a good question, because we are struggling with this. The research by design project that we did a lot, it also, my final project was not at all about building, not at all about details, not at all about the multidisciplinary nature of our profession that I was trying to talk a bit about. It was very much about, let's say, strategic interventions by means of architecture. And there's a difference with that very actual building commissions, such as the ones that I explained today. And I also was a little bit blunt about the fact that we are a bit tired of research by design. I saw that it's being taped, so I should watch my words a little bit. Because this research by design was for us a very big chance. To run an office, because the 90s were over when we started our office. Young Dutch architects didn't so easily get commissions anymore when we started. And we got a lot of subsidies from research by design projects, and we were quite trained and quite good at it. But it never got into something more concrete. I think we had a lot of interesting projects made for the Harbour of Rotterdam. We did recently, semi-recently, like 3 years ago, still a very large project on sports in the city, in which we really try to show how you can, let's say, relate certain maatschappelijke problems in society or issues in society, how you could transform that into design. That's basically what we did a lot in research by design projects. But they never, until now, became real. And that's what we're trying so hard every time to get a real project out of it, because we got actually this fascination. Since we are building, we have more fascination for architecture, even if it's so small. We made a bird's house, and we had sometimes more fun with the bird's house. Maybe I should talk for myself, not for every partner. Then doing this very big visionary projects that were more linked to my final project, I would say, because then I was still into that. Right now, I would be happy with just making things real, to be honest. But your question was also, how does it influence each other? And I think there's a very big, I'm a bit jumping from one thing to the other, but I relate this question to something I was thinking when Liesbeth was presenting. Because what we do as an office, we are 3 partners, and we do all the projects, all the big projects, together. What you do in research by design projects, you also work very often in teams, and there's a lot of, let's say, argumentative discourse. So you have to bring in arguments every time, because a personal argument, let's say an argument that I'm fascinated about a metaphor, or I want to bring in certain poetry, which I find amazing, and in the project that you showed, is difficult for us to do in a team. Mm-hmm. Because we are usually, if you work in a team, you cannot go for a very personal, let's say, trajectory. And so in that way, I would say our research by design projects, they were also this kind of team things, and very much about argumentation. I don't say that our buildings are all to be argument, because I hope that there's more to it than only logics and rationale. But there is this kind of thing that we work in a team, and we try to convince each other with rational arguments very often. And that's also what you do in the research by design projects a lot. So there is a relation, but at the same time, I would be happy to do less or none research by design, and do the real thing.
Hey, well, I switch to you, Liesbeth. Well, it was. Yeah, I was thinking that you did this for some years. You did something completely different.
Mm-hmm.
And you are in a certain way very personal in the way you design. It's a kind of personal story almost, every building. And then as, and now I forgot the word, Rijksbouwmeester. Just say for the international people here, Rijksbouwmeester is the same as the State Council Architect. Yeah. That suddenly you are in a completely different position. You talk also about, it's about strategies, and you are more talking about other architects than on your own work. So how does that, you did that a few years, then you get back to your office, does that change your way of designing or of looking at your commissions?
No. No, really. No, I think it's just what we discussed. Or you work in a team and you decide together, and you do something together, or you don't. And you can choose. You can choose one day this or the other way that. You can choose. You can stop tomorrow and do your own thing. And so I can stop, and I was asked to be a chief government architect. And in that position, you're not talking about your own wishes. Then you're talking about national importance of architecture. So then it became important to take care that young architects, new architects are getting commissions actually, and that that it is felt in every small municipality that it is important to have real architects and not only someone doing something without a good architect. And well, that is then of course a complete different story, and you can do that. It's another job. I can wash dishes as well. Yeah, it's another job. And as we are skilled architects, we can think with distance about it. And so, of course, I showed you a personal story, but I can think with distance as well about it and work with it.
And in your, you develop this kind of architectural vocabulary, which is very much related to a vocabulary of industrial buildings, the sculpturality, the shapes, etc., etc. And how far do you go into it? Seems to become in the development of your work steeds uitbundiger, almost more expressive. Let's say it. You hardly showed the schakelstation.
The energy plant.
The energy plan, which is for me one of the, maybe also where you really make the shift to this very strong industrial vocabulary in your work. And how far do you go in that vocabulary?
No, it's not a vocabulary. I think the world is not waiting for my vocabulary. The world is waiting for buildings and housing and objects that, as I explained, that do something good besides be functional. And so at the moment we are working on, in Tilburg on a housing project which has a Catholic approach, which is a sort of religious cluster philosophy as an urban design, and has it's completely another way of doing. So actually I don't want to make one vocabulary. I don't think that is so really important.
And how much does the materialization influence finally the decisions in how you design?
Yeah, it's of course yeah, we're open here. Designing is a mess in your head. I mean, it's chaos. You start with as well as you said already. It's nonsense to think that you first have the concept and then you roll out the plan. It's absolutely the other way around. And so, when does material come into your head? So you want to. Of course, you're in love with some material, or you think some material copes very well with that specific form, or a client says, "I want that material." So, yeah, does it influence? Enormously. It is of extreme importance, and you have to choose well about material, and don't choose too cheap because then it becomes clumsy, your building. And it is important, but it's not most important. And when does it happen? Somewhere in the chaos during time. it's not linear.
So architecture is total chaos. Can are there questions from the audience? Shall I give you the microphone? Have experience with shouting, that's working very well.
In our last lecture we had an interview, and he said that he thinks the future of architecture lies in 3D printing. I still don't think about it right then, I need to be honest, but how do you think? I see you shaking your head. How do you think about that? The both of you?
I think it's not true. I think there will be some influence on 3D printing on architecture, but architecture has been exposed to a lot of trends in the last 2,000 years, and it didn't change much. One trend that I witnessed shortly after I studied actually was the trend of parametric design. There was mainly I was quite linked to Berlage at one point as an education because I used to be studying there. And the trend at that time, and still there, is of course you guys know much better, Grasshopper, to say that a building is dynamic. And also a model design is dynamic, so you slide something and it changes. I remember, actually, this is funny because it was maybe even in this room that Greg Lynn did a lecture. I hope you know Greg Lynn, he's one of the first blob architects. And by that time, the kind of future of architecture was the blob and the parametricness of architecture. So what I want to say is it will influence a bit because parametric design will influence design, not necessarily towards the blob but towards something else. 3D printing will do something, but it will definitely not change and will not be the future of architecture. It will be a little future, in my opinion.
I do agree, and I think it's a pity when a wall is not piled up by small elements, but printed. And I think we all share that feeling that if we can undo things easily. So in wood, if you construct in wood, it is a beam, and it's easy to make, and you can undo it quite easy. So it's flexible. And I think the focus of printing is to make the largest elements that you can print at once, that have all the characteristics of many different materials together. I think that's no fun. That has no soul, something like that.
More questions?
Yeah, I had a question for Liesbeth. How important is the context in your work? Because with the Amsterdam Energy Plan, it's clear what it comes from, but with the older buildings, the red ones, it just seems like the factory building you said from France, I think, that you just place there, does the context matter, or how do you start from that?
No, the silo I climbed in to measure the measures was in France, but I didn't copy the silo. I only copied only measured the material. So I knew what the material. Yeah, I think context is extremely important. The polder of the Rode Donders is the first time Almere is proud of being a polder is because of the Rode Donders. And that is because that was the first answer to the real context of Almere is polder. And so the large scale green areas with the long lines of the highway and the electricity wires actually was never being seen as a quality before. And I think I therefore did a lot with the context. And yeah, of course, the context works extremely on the drawing, on what you think about a spot. Have you ever seen a human being without context? No, it doesn't exist. It all reacts on each other.
Are there more questions from the audience? Okay, well, I know that you tomorrow morning early you have to go to Israel for your next lecture. So I propose that we close up the evening, and I would like to thank you all very much for your presence. The next lecture from this very evening for June is actually quite soon, because it will be had to do with scheduling and the program of Tiamella from HHF Architects, who was available on that moment. But I would like more applause and thank you very much to our